everyone. Namaste. My name is Ashwini. Welcome to another episode of Growth Fit interview series brought to you by CustomFit.ai. CustomFit.ai enable marketers and sales professionals to customize their web content without code changes to showcase the right value proposition. It's super simple, just three steps. Install the CustomFit Chrome extension, then go to website and customize the content and generate the shareable link and track the visits. Today we have Iqbal Ali with us. Welcome Iqbal and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Iqbal is joining us from England. He is co-founder and developer of Site Money, and he is an experimentation and user experience specialist. He has also worked product side in his early days. I think today's session is going to be a lot about experimentation, testing, and convergence. I'm happy to start with your journey as a web designer, Iqbal. You started your journey as a web designer and developer. What was that one thing you found very interesting to go for, and how did you move to optimization later?
Nice. So yeah, thank you. So I've kind of had like quite a varied career. I think it's fair to say. So I started off like pure, just pure design, and then moved into front end development, and then kind of for some time stayed in front end development, then got into user experience, user research, all of that kind of stuff, and then kind of, if I'm going to be honest, I fell into CRO through sheer boredom more than anything else, because one thing that I found is and one thing that CRO kind of appealed to me is previously I was doing front end development or user design and just throwing it. It just went into this void. You didn't know what was happening. And so the CRO side appealed to me because it was, I was able to see the full cycle of actually seeing the impacts of the work that I was, or that we as a team were doing. So that very much appealed to me. So it kind of got over my boredom a little bit of just kind of, sending the void. And it kind of makes sense in a way because I spent some time as a teacher as well. So one of the things that we learned is the cold learning cycle. So you basically get some concrete experience, and then you have some thoughts or abstract thinking that you have, and you put it to the test. You build something and test it out, and you get the output, and then that kind of way it keeps students engaged and it keeps you learning. So I think that's the kind of thing that I really got a kick out of, is being able to see that full cycle. So yeah, so then I fell into CRO. So yeah, I was head of optimization for a while at Trainline. After that, doing some freelancing, set up a company as you mentioned, and the company that I'm kind of that I work for at the moment is a SaaS company. So it's like they provide a service to another business. I'm focusing on them for a while. So yeah, that's kind of my history in a brief nutshell.
It's great to know about it, Iqbal. And as you mentioned about optimization, you were optimization manager at Trainline, and so my question is, how would you start with your optimization efforts for a website?
Yeah. So what I would do is, I think it's different for every website. Because sometimes you'd have a lot of data already approaching a brand new website. So approaching a brand new website, like if you're approaching a site from scratch, I would look into the data. So user research is a really, like, user feedback and stuff like that is a really good source of information. any sort of analytics data that currently exists, Google Analytics, funnel reports, all that kind of stuff, and we're checking against all sorts of different segments to get some idea of how users are behaving on the site, heat maps, all that kind of stuff. I remember a client I worked for in the past, and just to kind of describe that process. I didn't have access at first to their data, so I came up with all of these experiment ideas. And then after I got access to the data, and doing an insights document for them, which is kind of like doing a deep dive into seeing where the traffic is coming from, seeing all of the, getting hold of some user feedback, user research, talking to the customer research, customer service department and stuff like that. I found that I had to throw all of those experiment ideas away and kind of like pivot my thinking and the thinking for the company in a slightly different direction. So yeah, this I would always approach it from data first perspective, just kind of like kind of like creating an insight document where you basically just go through step by step, checking every single aspect of the site, how users are using the site.
Okay, and when it comes to user or maybe a website visitor,
Yeah.
so what are the biggest hurdles for the visitors to the website? Like what are things stops them from converting?
I think again it's kind of different for different companies and for different pages of that company as well. So, for instance, one of the people I was consulting with a while ago was just a few weeks ago actually, is this company, or it's this university, and they're creating a website for teaching cybersecurity. So it's like a platform for teaching cybersecurity, all kinds of lessons and competitions and all that kind of stuff. And their problem was definitely information architecture. And we could, as I spoke to them, they explained to me how they had to teach new users how to where to find stuff and how to use a website, what the website was about, etc. So none of their users were really kind of free to explore the site. They always needed some level of support. So for them it was information architecture. For others, I can see different kind of problems, but the problems would be pretty much different and unique per not just company, because even at the train line in different departments on different areas of the site, the problems are slightly different if they had problems. So yeah. So I would say it kind of varies, but information architecture is probably a main thing, and clarity of value proposition. Like getting rid of distractions, all that kind of stuff is pretty key to start off with.
Yeah, I think it's a important insight, I would say, for those who want to convert uh, visitors to the potential leads or maybe happy paid customers from website itself.
Hmm.
Uh, so when it's coming to the website, if you're working for a company or their website, and the task is to drive traffic to that particular website, so what is the major source of uh, yours to concentrate on, and how do you make it work?
So I'll be honest here. The driving traffic has never been a strength of mine, and it's not something that, because I can deal with traffic once we've got the traffic. There's like rigid CRO processes we can put into place to come up with ideas and to increase conversion rates, to improve the product once we got the traffic. Um, but getting the traffic has been and I've been tackling this problem for quite recently actually, because I write comic books and graphic novels as well, so I've got a site where I've been trying to drive traffic for absolutely ages. And what I found is like so I can tell you some of the learnings. So for it's quite easy to drive traffic from social media campaigns like Facebook ads and stuff like that, but making them stick and making sure that that the traffic is relevant, that's been quite tricky. The thing that's kind of started to work is instead focusing more on content and content marketing, and so just making sure there's putting all sorts of bits of content out there, and I found that kind of drives better quality traffic. Um, but there's other people who swear by Facebook campaigns and stuff like that. So and social media campaigns and ads. I know working with a client in the past, the majority of their traffic was coming through social media. So and the conversion rates coming through social media are always tiny. So then there's a challenge to try and maximize the benefit of all of that traffic coming through from there. But it is a tricky exercise doing it that way that I found.
Yeah, I totally agree to the content part. Like, it's content plays a really important key role in driving the traffic to your website, and it doesn't matter what's the media channel or what's the mode of communication, but it's just one-to-one conversation with your prospect or maybe your lead or maybe
Yeah,
website visitor.
yeah,
So
yeah.
now the inbound part is worked out. Now,
Hmm.
suppose you have driven the traffic to the website, and
Yeah.
according to the survey, what I came to know is website conversion rates are on an average it is 2%, which is considered as a good number. But if it is poor, not more than 1% or 0.1%, 0.2%. So, what is your methodology to increase that conversion rate?
So first of all, I'd ask or figure out from the website what the goals of the website are. And so once you've figured out what the goals of the website are, it's important to track those goals and to see how those goals are performing. Not just in terms of the end metric, like for example, a conversion rate, but all sorts of metrics in between. If you've got a funnel, then what's the conversion? What's the shape of the conversion funnel, for example?
Mhm.
Uh, what kind of behaviors are users doing? How are users behaving? Where is traffic coming from? So where is traffic coming from is important um, because then you can get a sense of what their expectation is when they land on the site and how you can achieve relevance for them. Um, and then what I actually do is basically I've got like a set of conversion levers that I've used in the past to kind of focus the thinking. So there's a conversion value proposition, clarity, relevance, social proofing, authority, confidence, all a set of conversion levers that I've known, modifying or focusing on those specific areas, from those specific, looking at the site from those specific lenses, can help increase the conversion rate, or at least come up with hypotheses as to what may or may not be working. And so all other sort of systems like design thinking systems kind of go through and ideate, come up with ideas about experiments, and then once you've got some hypotheses, then it's all about then figuring out what the goal of the company is, what hypotheses fit within the goal of the with the path that the company wants to take, and what is the how do you go about prioritizing all of these findings. So yeah, I mean that's kind of the way I would go, is to do some, you could just collect data, analyze it, and then ideate, uh, and then yeah, just run some tests, validate. From those validations, go through the whole cycle again, sort of like that, like the cold learning cycle. So you basically ideate, develop tests, test out in the wild, get the results, and then let that reshape your thinking, if at all it needs to, and come up with new hypotheses, and just go again.
That's great. And as you have mentioned here, I would like to mention one thing about this is a real problem every marketer face. So we try to solve it here with CustomFit. We have uh, like CustomFit does website, you can customize your web content in just 3 clicks, and you can literally go and change any element on the website, and also track the results of what accordingly, or then and there. So it's a kind of same situation we are trying to solve here, and it also increases the engagement to
Yeah.
with your lead or with your website visitors. That's what, just one thing I wanted to mention. Okay, so what is your approach in removing all those distractions on the website? So as you have worked as a worked or working in user experience, so what all things, so what all elements are important, where how can a marketer tackle this thing, or how can a user experienced person can tackle this thing to remove the distraction on the website?
So that's a good question, because actually the first thing is identifying what is a distraction, and that
Hmm.
be a straightforward task, because something we might consider um, actually may not be a distraction for.
Huh.
So that's the first thing, and the fact that everything that we assume is a distraction is just a hypothesis that needs to be validated. The next thing I would do is try and gather some clues to figure out, what could be. Can we gather some evidence to see what could be a distraction? One kind of like clear way or process that I found has worked for me is to one, again, go back to the think about the product or the business as a whole, and what the goals are for a particular page, particular site, and then look at the user data to figure out if that is seeing true. Like, for example,
Mm-hmm.
if the business wants users to click through and go through a particular funnel, but users are
Mm-hmm.
all sorts of other different things, well, then there's a chance that some of this other stuff could be distraction, and then it's a case of um, trying to consolidate and trying to really focus the information, so it kind of fits the product goal and purpose. Um, so yeah, I would start off there, and then just gather evidence as we go, and start removing stuff, honing uh, content to be clearer, more specific, create more clarity, all that kind of stuff is really important.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Uh, So I'm just curious about two things you mentioned in the first answer. That you mentioned about test ideas and experiment ideas. So, what is your process of coming up with the test ideas, and how do you prioritize the experimentation of these ideas?
So there's the getting test ideas can be kind of like a messy exercise. So sometimes test ideas just come up as you see some results and you see something in the
Mhm.
data and yeah, you write it down. But otherwise, I do try to have a set process though, to go through. And at Trainline, we used to have a process to kind of get people to get teams ideating together. So in terms of like coming up with test ideas, for example, I mentioned the design thinking sort of
Mhm.
systems. So it's and for that it's kind of like um, what I mean by it, and it's probably like a version of design thinking, and not quite like really pure design thinking, but it's kind of getting a sense of what the users may want from the site, maybe creating some behavioral personas or something like that. Um, After that, it's breaking down a set of tasks. So maybe I want to set it. I'm a user who wants to buy a ticket to such and such place, and I want to go there regularly every week. So then what the task would be, I want to go and search for some tickets, and I want to book those tickets, and I want to have the tickets as a recurring kind of a weekly traveling itinerary. So then that's the task, and then the next sort of thing is about empathy, where you kind of trying to empathize with that user persona and go through the the website with that lens in mind, thinking and trying to empathize as much as possible with putting yourself in the shoes of that customer, and then just coming up with a whole bunch of problem statements that you think are problems or are things that may be distractions to the task at hand. And then there'll be a process of trying to of going into the data and trying to prove out some of those problem statements that you've identified. And if you don't have enough data, or if you don't have the right kind of data to validate those problem statements, maybe set up some user surveys, very specific user surveys to target users around those areas, or set up some new metrics, or even do some user testing and just ask and do some like real user research and get some ideas. So that's one process that I think. The other one is I mentioned the 8 conversion levers that I often rely on, and just kind of going through the site with being able to identify what is a social proof,
Hmm.
what can work as social proof, what is a value proposition, what is working as a value proposition. So you need to when we're looking at sites, we need to look at them in a slightly different way. We need to kind of kind of know how to critically analyze websites in certain cut and slice them in certain different ways in our head. So and so those conversion levers kind of help as well, just to then come up with certain ideas. Say, oh, how can I improve or prove the value proposition to a user? Where might I want to place a value proposition? For example, just before checkout, maybe represent a value proposition to get that final sell. Um, Maybe reduce distraction on the checkout screen with navigation that is a distraction. and kind of takes you away from the checkout screen. Maybe you want to focus on that as a distraction. So things like that also can help come up with test ideas. And then in terms of prioritization, again, it's kind of prioritization kind of differs from place to place and from team to team. So in a broad sense, teams should have OKRs. So we should know what we want to focus on as a product. So we might have a focus on specific feature sets and improving specific flows, in which case the prioritization would have to start from there. There's a guy called David Mannenheim who's written a great post about prioritization. It's on LinkedIn, and he talks about that. And he goes into really good detail about that.
Yes, please do share with us.
Yeah.
Even we will share that post with the website.
Yeah,
once it is published.
Yeah. That is a good one, because there's so many different prioritization frameworks, and but the bottom line about the prioritization frameworks I found is to understand that what they are prioritization matrices. So what I mean prioritization matrices is that, for example, you've got Pi and you've got the one from CRO, CXL, sorry. So and they all of those kind of things are prioritization matrices. So you have a set of criteria that you want to score a test idea against, and then you basically, for each test idea, you put a score against each one of those criteria. For example, with Pi, it's potential, importance, and ease. So potential basically is you focus on the page with the highest drop off, so which is a page that's worst. So then you rank all your pages in terms of worst performing to best performing. And then importance, which is like how much useful traffic are they getting. From the most traffic, you rank them to the least. And then ease, which is kind of how easy it is to develop a specific test, and then you give them an overall score. So that's one of many sort of different prioritization matrices. And like I said, each company would have to. I've tweaked all kinds of. We've created all kinds of prioritization matrices based on the company. Some based on Pi, some based on other sort of things, some based around CXL's process, based on the sort of like going through looking at it in terms of OKRs, and then kind of focusing that way. So yeah, there's different ways, but it's basically every company's kind of slightly different, and yeah, it's just learning how to work within those constraints.
I think that was a new learning for me today as a marketer. And as you explained about the Pi, that's a completely new concept for me. Sorry.
The Pi is great because the reason why I think the wider funnel guy, Chris Goward. So he came up with that concept, and I think the reason why I kind of always gravitate towards that as a starting point anyway, and then modify it as based on the specific company. But the reason why that works is that what's important for tests is you want to focus on areas that you can get a high impact, which is what the P kind of identifies. You want to make sure that you have enough traffic to run your tests, which is what the I kind of infers. And then you want to make sure that whatever test you're doing, you get a good ROI, which is what that ease score represents. So it's kind of like a good base to start thinking about testing.
That's perfectly makes sense. So you mentioned about a person that you follow, like their blogs or newsletters. Any kind of specific CRO blogs or newsletters you follow in your routine journey or your routine daily routine or podcast that you listen to, that this will be useful for like our entry level marketers who want to get into this field.
Yeah, I mean, there's CRO Cafe, there's the guys at Spiro as well. They owned by CXL. They're good to. There's a whole lot of people I follow on LinkedIn who are really value quite a lot. There's we are also on Fridays we have a conversion world roundtable which I attend every Friday at 4 o'clock, and in that we have CRO experts from all sorts of fields coming together, and we kind of discuss topics, and we kind of talk about experiences and stuff like that. Craig Sullivan, follow him, and he's been doing this for a very long time. But yeah, so I think all of those kind of sources are good to follow, I think.
And lastly, like one advice for our new generation of marketers, what should be their perspective before they enter into this marketing world?
I think the perspective would be that is a tough one. I think if there's one piece of advice that I wish I had got early on is to try my best to get a mentor who can help direct my learning. So yeah, I would say that I would say try and get a decent mentor if at all possible, and also the fact that you know there's certain thing with the CRO kind of stuff. In the end, we don't ever really know what's going to work. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, but there are sort of best practices as a baseline that we can always learn about. So learn about the fact that when we're dealing with products, for example, it's this union between the user and the product, and so learning about user-centered design also is it's a really useful thing to kind of research. Um, but yeah, I think learning about the users is always a good place, and getting a mentor.
Yes, yes, I totally agree. So with this question, we would like to wrap the session up. Thank you, Iqbal, for joining us today, and Merry Christmas in advance.
Merry Christmas to you as well. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year.